Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show on the 20th day now of February 2021. Up first, hazardous weather graphic shows some advisory areas and a warning area. We'll start with a red zone there north of Juneau. That's a winter storm warning for heavy snow for tonight. Overnight hours tonight, specifically along the Klondike Highway from Haines on up to Skagway there, and north of the Juneau area. Temperatures are expected to remain near freezing, and moderate snow falling this afternoon in Haines. They picked up about 2 to 4 inches. Expected to get, I believe it's 4 to 12 inches total by tomorrow morning along the Klondike Highway. Again, Haines Junction on up into the Skagway area and White Pass. Otherwise, it'll be mostly rain at lower elevations, and then higher elevations will see snow farther to the south with gusty winds. And wind chill advisory for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and that's out until 6 a.m. Monday for wind chills to 55 degrees below zero, with winds occasionally gusting to 40 miles an hour up in that area. And then for the northwest coast into the Noatak Valley, that's also a wind chill advisory, and that's out until 6 p.m. Monday for the northern Seward Peninsula, northwest coast, Noatak Valley till 6 p.m. Monday. Wind chill advisory, wind chills at 50 degrees below zero at times. And then 6 a.m. Monday for the St. Lawrence Island area and the Bering Strait coast. Again, that's a wind chill advisory as well. Looking for wind chills to 50 degrees below zero with winds gusting 20 to 40 miles an hour. And also along the southwest coast, that's wind chill advisory out until noon Sunday. In fact, actually the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island, Kuskokwim Valley, and eastern Norton Sound, Nulato Hills area. Wind chill advisory for wind chills 40 to 50 degrees below zero. And that's out until, let's see, let me check my cheat sheet here, noon Sunday tomorrow. Okay, well, that's it for the watches, warnings, advisories for the state. Satellite imagery showing next surge of moisture pushing onto the southeast coast there. In fact, it's actually oriented parallel, or not parallel, but perpendicular to the panhandle there, and extends quite a ways, all the way off the map there. So quite a period of wet and windy conditions coming up for the panhandle. And, of course, that's snow down to sea level there for the area, as I mentioned, for the Klondike Highway tonight, and then probably mixing in with rain even in that area, and rain moderate to heavy at times for the panhandle tonight and through tomorrow. Otherwise, we've got clouds across southern Alaska and basically westerly flow, and that band bringing light snow to Soldovia, Homer today, about anywhere from maybe 1 to 2 inches of snow falling there, and actually Kodiak picked up about 2 to 3 inches of snow in the last 12 hours there with gusty winds, or actually 2 to 4 with winds gusting out of the west-northwest at 30 miles an hour and keeping the temperatures cold enough for snow, actually accumulating snow with just below freezing. And so moisture on the increase again over Cook Inlet, kind of lifting northward, so I'll probably push into northern Cook Inlet this evening with another round of some light snow. Otherwise, snowfall is pretty light today across southern Alaska in that cloudy area. Then it was much colder, even southern Alaska in single numbers to lower teens, and then well below zero north and west of the Alaska Range all the way out to the Arctic coast. But winds Delta Junction, east, southeast, 30 to 35 miles an hour with temperatures below zero there. About 10 to 15 below, quite cold. Fairbanks this morning, 37 degrees below zero, but they've warmed back up to about -6 at mid-afternoon there. With light winds, pretty dry over the interior, and still windy. Northern Bering Sea, Gamble, gusts 30, 35 miles an hour out of the north, temperature about 7 or 8 degrees below zero. And then a weak system there over the central Aleutians. You can see the spin there right over Adak and Atka, just north of the islands there. And really that just bringing some gusty winds into the Unalaska Island area, western Alaska Peninsula. Not too strong, precipitation pretty light. That's really not much of a system at all. And on the chart, it's about 977 millibars there, but the gradient isn't all that tight with it. So even though it's fairly low pressure, but not very intense, 973 millibar low there in the just east of Kodiak Island, pushing northeastward. That's what's tending to increase the moisture along the North Gulf Coast, southern Alaska, especially over the Panhandle today with rain and snow. Again, depends on your elevation, latitude, and time of day, what type you had. And anywhere from Ketchikan had the heaviest rainfall amount, 3/4 of an inch in the last 12 hours, about 1/3 of an inch falling at Sitka. And winds pretty gusty as well, 30, 40 miles an hour along the coast. And Juneau picking up wind gusts out of the east-southeast, or east-southeast at about 36 miles an hour there. And again, the moderate snow falling in Haines and moderate rain down at in the southern Panhandle. Otherwise, out over the Aleutians, scattered snow showers around, and then kind of a band of snow and snow showers there across the north-central Bering Sea, kind of a boundary of the colder air to the north and the warmer air to the south associated with the low. And then a weak trough bringing kicks the winds up a little bit, but not too bad. Gusts 30, 35 miles an hour. Dead horse this afternoon. A little bit of light flurry condition up there, but amounts are quite light, under an inch or even under half an inch, in some cases under a 1/4 inch or nothing at all. Otherwise, high pressure, weak high pressure in over the north slope tonight. So the interior well below zero, variably cloudy. Winds not too bad, still breezy though for the Delta Junction area. And kind of winds on the increase, pretty gusty winds for the southeast coast, with snow chances, Kenai Peninsula all the way up northern Cook Inlet, and then that low out to the west, tracking slowly eastward toward the Fox Islands. And the front, again, not too strong, but that'll bring some snow or moisture into the Alaska Peninsula, maybe even Bristol Bay. Don't look for a whole lot over Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island right on the rain and snow edge there. So periods of probably snow, with those winds coming more around to the north. Probably will stay in the form of snow the entire night, possibly. You're right on the edge, so look for maybe a few more inches. And moving ahead to Sunday, again, wet and windy for the southeast coast. Snow, higher elevations, rain, sea level, and winds 20 to 40 miles an hour to the west-southwest there. Good southwest flow and a good fetch of moisture all the way back off the chart there. Kodiak Island dries out there right under a trough axis as the jet kind of pushes back to the south there, taking the moisture with it. So some lingering snow showers, but a lot drier, and some clearing. And no change over the interior, cold and variably cloudy with fairly light winds. Arctic coast still vulnerable to some flurries and gusty winds on the east side there, with those weak troughs up over the Arctic. And another front brings snow and rain, and a little bit of an increase in the winds of the western Aleutians, but I don't think it'll be gale force, and a break. Light winds, weak ridging, eastern Aleutians to the Pribilofs, and not too bad, even the northern Bering Sea winds will be lighter. And for Monday, that front pushes eastward and northward, bringing light snow all the way up to St. Matthew Island. Cold high pressure in over the western interior, but cold conditions continue over all interior Alaska. Maybe a little bit better chance of some light snow on the Arctic coast north slope. It stays wet and breezy, but not as wet. Precipitation won't be as heavy, and the winds won't be as heavy either for the Panhandle, but it won't end as well. And moving on to the lows for tonight, 30s near 40 for the Panhandle, 22, 25 below Copper River Basin, 10 below to 5 above South Central Alaska, mid-20s Kodiak Island, mid-30s below zero for the McGrath-Nikolai area, near 40 below for the Fairbanks area, lower 40s Northeast Interior, minus 20s Arctic Coast, teens for the Pribilofs, and right around or a little below freezing for the Aleutians, 20s Alaska Peninsula. Highs tomorrow, lower 30s Kodiak Island, teens South Central Alaska, near zero Copper River Basin, mid-30s to mid-40s for the Panhandle. Below zero north of the Alaska Range, west of the Alaska Range in northern Bering Sea, lower 20s Pribilofs, upper 30s near 40 feet for the Aleutians, lower 30s Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. And then the lows Monday morning, again below zero, 20 to 45 below in the interior, even in the upper teens.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the flying weather for Sunday morning, we will be watching a weakening system in the Gulf, producing some IFR conditions across the Panhandle and Northeast Gulf Coast. Otherwise, some Low clouds and fog in the Yukon Flats area, producing some IFR conditions there, and some weakening troughs over the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, producing some areas of IFR conditions there. Otherwise, we will be watching a system coming into the North Slope and across the Aleutians. But for Sunday afternoon, there's the system coming into the Aleutians with some IFR conditions, marginal conditions throughout much of the Bering. And there's the system approaching the North Slope and improving conditions in the Panhandle with some IFR conditions along the coastal mountains there. And for Monday morning, again, some deteriorating conditions across the North Slope with IFR conditions up there. And again, IFR conditions forming in the morning hours of the Yukon Flats. And there's the system moving further east through the Bering with IFR conditions through portions of the Bering and eastern Aleutians. And again, some IFR conditions down through the coastal mountains. For Monday afternoon, continued IFR conditions there along the North Slope and IFR conditions spread out through the eastern Bering and down through the eastern Aleutians and portions of the Alaska Peninsula. And again, some improving conditions across the Panhandle, Northeast Gulf Coast with areas of marginal conditions. For past conditions and AKwx VFR, add again VFR, but watch for marginal conditions on the north entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal improving to VFR. Rainy VFR, windy VFR. Isabel VFR will be kind of chilly in those regions, but still VFR flight conditions. Antasta, marginal improving to VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage gets some VFR conditions, deteriorating to marginal conditions during the day. And for Chilkoot in white, IFR conditions throughout the day on Sunday. For freezing levels, surface freezing levels stretches out from along the coastal mountains of the Panhandle down into the Northern Gulf and Kodiak Island out through Alaska Peninsula into the Bering. You have to get out to portions of the Alaska Panhandle to find a 2,000 foot freezing level. For icing conditions on Sunday, I went for between 5 and 10,000 feet there with considerable moderate areas, especially with that low moving into the region there. I went for, again, areas of considerable moderate, and also between 3 and 9,000 feet out there in the eastern Aleutians. For the jet stream, low pressure system way out there in the western Aleutians, but otherwise westerlies dominate, especially across the Gulf with 70 knots coming across the Panhandle. Have to get into stronger winds as you get south of the Panhandle, 160 knot jet down there. Otherwise, as you come back across the central Aleutians, 95 knots in portions of the central Aleutians in a westerly direction around a ridge of high pressure. For 9,000 foot winds on Sunday, let's start with the Panhandle. Westerlies again dominate, 45 knots across central Panhandle, 55 knots in pockets of the northern Panhandle there. Otherwise, light and variable across much of the mainland. Northerly winds across the North Slope with 25 knots there near Ukqiavik. Low pressure system near the Waikate Delta. And northerlies to southerly winds across the western Aleutians with 40 knots there out there. Central Aleutians down to 25 knots, and again northerly winds coming across the eastern Aleutians with 50 knots across the eastern Aleutians. And for 3,000 foot winds, low pressure again out there in the western Aleutians, southerly winds coming across in a counterclockwise flow, 40 knots in the central Aleutians, 25 knots in the northerly winds out there in the southern end of the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise light and variable across the mainland. 40 to 45 knots across the Panhandle, 25 knots across the North Slope in the northerly winds. For turbulence, looking at below 6,000 feet there in the Panhandle with considerable moderate areas down there, and then again between 4,000 feet in pockets of the Alaska Peninsula with again below 4,000 feet out there, and lastly out there in the western Aleutians below 3,000 feet in areas of considerable moderate in those areas of the western Aleutians with again some isolated moderate again for pockets across.
So that Galena flood back in 2013 was at the intersection of weather and climate. Rick, I often get questions about the difference between weather and climate. How do you distinguish between the two?
Well, that's a really good question, John. One of the analogies that I like to use, the wardrobe analogy. So in my closet, in my dresser, I've got clothes appropriate for 90-degree weather and 50 below weather. That's the climate part of my wardrobe. But what I'm going to put on today, am I going to wear my Hawaiian shirt because it's going to be a hot July day, or am I going to wear my bunny boots because it's going to be 50 below? That's the weather part of my wardrobe.
You know, there's another interesting analogy. I've heard it said that climate is like your personality, whereas weather is like the mood you're in today. It's like that old John Denver song. Some days are diamonds and some days are stones. That's how weather works.
Of course, it's really a continuous range. Just as the Galena ice jam flooding was the result of a weather event, that ice jam, up against that cold spring, a climate event. So too with less impactful events. For instance, a daily record high temperature is a weather event, one day's high. But we put that in a climate context, say comparing to a century or more of individual temperatures on a given date.
So these extreme events like record high temperatures also happen on the seasonal time scale. Just in the last few years, we've had what was called a marine heat wave in the waters south of Alaska, the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea. But the water temperatures in that area set new records in 2015 and 2016.
And most Alaskans are acutely aware that big wildfire seasons are becoming more and more common, most recently in 2015, and the frequency of million-acre seasons has doubled since the early 1990s.
Just this past winter, we had another event in the Bering Sea. The ice extent in the Bering was lower than it had ever been in the last 150 years. That's about as far back as the good records go. There'd never been another year like this one in the Bering with so little sea ice. That had major impacts on the communities along the west coast and the northwest coast.
So, John, what have you been hearing from folks around town about these kind of climate extremes?
I've heard from a number of people who've been here a long time that winters just aren't what they used to be. The average temperatures are higher than they were back in the 1960s and 1970s, and we just don't get the extreme cold days, the days down in the minus 50s or even the minus 60s that we used to experience in Fairbanks back in the 1960s, 1970s, and even into the 1980s.
Well, and it's not just winter either. 2016 and 2017, the summers brought unusually muggy, humid weather to Fairbanks. We're not used to thinking of that in interior Alaska, but record high humidities during the summer months. As in the winter, we've had a significant increase in freezing rain events, since about 2000. So much so that DOT has changed their road treatment strategy, and now we have the school district building in winter rain days into the calendar. And of course, we all need good weather forecasts for these high impact weather events.
But we know, though, that weather forecasts are sometimes wrong just 3 or 4 days in advance. So if these weather forecasts and the models they're based on can't pick up events like freezing rain 3 or 4 days ahead, how can we believe what they say about climate for the future?
Well, that's a really good question, John. And I think the important thing to remember is that parts of the system are predictable.
So climate models can't give you weather for particular days or even for particular months or years. They actually predict averages. These are averages over periods of a decade or two, or even averages over periods of several years. So they don't give us the month-to-month information that we might want. What are they telling us about the future, though?
Well, these climate models are telling us on the decades-long time frames that warmer winters are going to become more common. We're going to have more frequent, very low sea ice years with late freeze up and early melt out. And the same will be true on Alaskan rivers. We'll have more frequent seasons when freeze up is late and break up is early.
One of the other common threads in these climate model predictions is that heavy rain events and heavy snow events will become more common in the future. That's actually a prediction that the models make for mid-latitudes as well as for high latitudes in areas like Alaska. So we can expect the heavy downpours to become heavier and the heavy winter snows to become heavier than we've been used to. They're also predicting more frequent freezing rain events, getting back to what you talked about earlier. These events that might have happened just once every year or two in the past could actually end up happening several times in a winter in the future, according to the climate models.
And it is important to remember that even in a warming world, there are still going to be seasons and years that are colder than the average, but these cold seasons will become less and less common. So, John, maybe I don't need to have those bunny boots in my closet anymore?
Well, at least you won't need to wear them as often as you did in the past.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at sea ice analysis, finished today, this afternoon on Saturday. About the same, looks like out in the Bering Sea, a little farther to the south, trying to get south of St. Matthew Island there. Pretty uniform pattern out there to the west, and then kind of breaks up there at Togiak Bay and on into Bristol Bay, with northeast Bristol Bay seeing some heavier ice and thinner in Togiak Bay there. And then not much change for Cook Inlet, except it looks like the ice is farther south now of the Forelands than it was, and a little bit more ice in Kamishak Bay than even yesterday. And for the coastal water forecast, gale warnings along the southeast coast tomorrow, good southwest flow, west-southwest, 35 to 40 knots, seas running 20 to 25 feet. And Clarence Strait, small craft advisory, southeast 25 knots, and small craft advisories for the central and northern inside waters, south winds 30 knots, seas 6 feet. And then on Monday, west winds at 30 knots there all along the coast, except the extreme north coast there, and we're at the eastern North Gulf Coast. East 25 knots, 20-foot seas, otherwise west 30 knots with seas running just under 25 feet. Lighter winds over the inside water, central and southern areas. Clarence Strait southwest at 20, south 20 for Stevens Passage. Small craft advisories for Lynn Canal with an east wind of 25 knots. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, northwesterlies 30 knots. Some higher gusts out of the northern bays, western bays especially, Passes Canal for example. And 6-foot seas, gale warnings for the North Gulf Coast, west-northwest, 35 knots. Small craft advisories for southern Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay. West winds 30 knots, northwest 30 for the Barren Islands. North of the Forelands, northern Cook Inlet, just light westerlies at 10. That'll turn northeast at 10 for northern Cook Inlet, while the area south of the Forelands becomes lighter out of the north at 20 knots. Gale warnings continue Kamishak Bay, gale warnings for Kamishak Bay, northwest 35, and a full gale there for the Barren Islands, the western North Gulf Coast. West wind sustained 40 knots, northwest 30 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, northwest at 15 knots with 2-foot seas. Kodiak Island, easy one, west winds 30 knots, 8 to 15-foot seas. Alaska Peninsula, easy one as well, northwest 25 to 30 knots. And Bristol Bay and the area from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest winds 30 knots. And for Monday, gale warnings, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, Cape Sarachev right up to Sitkinak for southwest 35 knots. Westerly gales for the east side of Kodiak Island. Shelikof Strait, small craft advisory, southwest at 25. And the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, small craft advisories, 11-foot seas going along with the 30-knot southerly winds, and Bristol Bay lighter with southeast winds at 20 knots. For the Unalaska Island, North side, Bering Sea side, west 15, 8-foot seas. Pacific side, west 25 knots, 18-foot seas. 20 to 30 knot winds from Mac Island out of the west-southwest. And 20 to 35 knot winds for Adak and Atka, with the gales on the Pacific side of the islands. And then small craft advisories, 30 knot winds, Amchitka to Shimei and Attu from the south and southeast. And for Monday, small craft advisories, Shimei to almost Nikolsky for 25 to 30 knot winds from the south and southwest. Seas running there, central and western Aleutians, 9 to 20 feet. And then 40 knot winds, Pacific side of the Fox Islands, and small craft advisory winds on the Bering Sea side of the islands. Southwest coast, start with St. Lawrence Island, north winds 25 knots for brisk wind advisories there. Otherwise, 15 knot winds along the Yukon Delta coast, light winds from the south of the Pribilof, seas 7 feet with 10 knot winds, and 30 knot northwest winds along the Kuskokwim Delta coast. Outlook for Monday, east at 15, early coming down there. In fact, going kind of variable and light for Norton Sound, but St. Lawrence Island east at 15, Yukon Delta coast east at 20, Kuskokwim Delta coast, small craft advisories east 30 knots. Gales for St. Matthew Island, the northern Bering Sea, northeast at 35, and the Pribilofs coming up to 30 knots from the south. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, brisk wind advisories, west winds 25 knots, central coast west at 20, west side northwest 15, and then brisk wind advisories from Cape Thompson to Wales, north 25. And then westerlies 15 knots there for the western Arctic coast all the way down to Wales, and northeast 15 on the central coast, 20 knots, become 25 knot winds from the west toward Demarcation Point. Otherwise, tonight, clouds, flurries, and wind chill advisories continue for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, high pressure, cold temperatures, and mostly dry conditions with variable clouds. Increasing snow across southern Alaska there with that low center in the Gulf there. And then winter storm warning, 6 to 12 inches of snow for the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.